like a certain amount of people who became billionaires overnight.
Like
For the crypto.
during the pandemic, you're saying? Because they said after.
Stocks or something like that. I'm still looking just
Oh, okay.
It's not all over.
After our pandemic stimulus checks, they said there's more billionaires.
That's another reason why they thought they.
I feel like he preys on people that are ignorant. He just gives these promises and doesn't elaborate on how he's going to fulfill them.
Right.
How do you expect to have lower grocery prices if he's raising tariffs on all imports?
There probably will not be lower. I think you're absolutely right on that.
I feel like somebody's often.
Well, people have tried. Yeah.
No. I feel like it's gonna be an inside job with the government. Like, who just knows?
Yeah, you never know. I mean, I do know. My mom said when JFK was shot, like everyone was extremely sad, like both sides. You know what I mean? Like, because it was just a shock. Oh, because he was president.
Except that's what makes it even worse. Like, that's really
right. Yeah. Oh yeah, we are on chapter 3. Okay, infants. I'm trying to be efficient because our high temperature probably happens while we're in class, and then you have to go back to wherever you're going back to. Who comes the farthest to class? And if you have to drive or walk or dorms?
I technically live in MPC, but I stay with my boyfriend a lot, and he lives about a half hour from here. So
Okay.
Driving.
That's a good long drive.
Okay.
Yeah, the high temperature is literally between 1 and 2, and it says 10. The high is 11. It's windy, I guess. And then it starts dropping. At 2, it's 10. At 3, it's 9. At 4, it's 7. And then at 5, it is 5. At 5 p.m., it's 5. And I'm trying to go to NPC or MPC. I always say it wrong.
MPC, yeah, Marauder.
Okay. Because they do have a treadmill. That's the only place. I don't want to run outdoors in this weather because you can actually hurt
they got a
yourself.
whole gym. It's pretty dope.
Yeah.
A treadmill where?
In
MPC.
They've got a whole gym on the first floor.
Oh, I don't really go to the gym.
It's my New Year's resolution because I'm old and I have cataracts and so basically, have you guys ever heard of cataracts?
Yeah.
It's like a
film.
foggy mirror. Yeah, like when you open your car and do the windshield thing. So I think if I get a surgery, they give you a new lens. So I have maybe 20/20 vision, but it's like a foggy, and I have to like blink a bunch. And I'll be like, look at you guys like, oh, there you are. So, but it has to be bad enough to get surgery, essentially. I don't know if I'm there yet, but there's so many different things. We were doing genograms. Any questions about a genogram? I know everybody's going to have a different family experience they erased mine, damn it. I drew it all up and they erased it. Yep.
Do I have to put every single one of my siblings on that thing?
Yeah, it's like
I have
as
9.
many as you can. You have 9.
And like my mom, she has 9 kids,
Right.
7 baby daddies. So like, I'm like, how do I know y'all can judge. So like, I'm like, I don't want to fit all that on there.
Right.
There's not enough paper and
As much reasonably as you can do. We'll just say that. As much, yes.
I'll just say I got mine done. Do you want it now or?
You know how to turn it on D2L, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay. And I'm happy to go over it and look at it, but I forget what Dad made it do on D2L, but as long as you do it in there,
okay, cool.
you should be good.
All right, awesome.
What else do we need to know? I did an assessment yesterday, and I was thinking about like genogram and how we ask those questions because I work full-time here. Our teachers union lets us see 8 clients. So I see 8 clients at my private practice. And then one of them is online. And on the weekends, I sit for hospice. Anybody know what hospice is? Oh, yeah. You have, or you've heard of it? Or-
I work in hospice right now.
Really? So what do you do for them?
I'm technically a med tech, but I like care for them while they're in hospice.
Yeah.
And like I kind of work as like a sitting vigil with people that are
That's what we
about to
do.
pass.
So what is their pay? I'm curious. Is it good?
It's shit.
Like
I'm
10,
16, 20.
12? Okay, 16. I'm trying to understand what
work
shit,
I do. I don't think.
because I started with 425 when I did money, then 25,000 a year with a master's degree, then 35,000 a year with a license, and that's like 17 an hour. 25,000 a year is like 12 an hour for 2,000 hours a year. And then teaching and lighthouse, it was like 50,000. Then you kind of like, yeah, a lot of my teaching jobs were 46,000 a year, 47,000 a year, 48. Here we all start at 50, and we still do. That's assistant professor. Then when you become associate professor, it's like 62. And when you become a full professor, I think it's like 74. So to raise a family of 6, it is a little challenging. But we make it happen. We make it work. What all do your parents do? You guys work here locally? Have your parents work here? What is the economy like? It's something I hit on in here because you'll see different human behavior with the economy changing. Anybody? Any parents social workers? What do they do for social work?
She's a case manager at the homeless shelter.
Okay. Locally?
Yeah, it's in Hamilton.
Okay. I think I've seen that one actually. They have one that does, because I had interns placed, and it's kind of run by churches where they give beds overnight and then they rotate the different churches. Have you heard of that one?
Yeah, it's like, I think it's Serve City, so it's like faith-based.
Okay.
They do overnights.
It's called Serve City.
Mhm.
Is the pay okay?
I think she makes like 54,000.
That's actually really good. I hate to say it, but you guys know what the average American salary actually is? An average household income, which means everybody in the house. Anybody ever looked it up? 52 for the average American salary. That includes like Chicago, where it's way up, New York, probably Los Angeles. Anybody know what the average household income is? That's like everybody in the house making money. I've heard it's 62. So it could have changed with inflation. Well, it should change with inflation. But so yeah, to be able to make that, like I said, my first job was 24,000 a year. They told me, to get a license. I got a license. I was 35,000 a year. When I worked at Lighthouse, it was like 47,000 a year as a supervisor. When I started teaching, it was 48,000 a year at Miami University in Miami, Middletown, and Hamilton. And then here, they start you at 50 with a tenure track job. Now you can do summer classes for like 4,000 each. You can do overload classes. But we just had a bunch of layoffs. Anybody else in a city where they're having layoffs, or from a city where there's layoffs? Dayton, Cleveland. Which city?
I transferred here from a different college in Columbus.
Uh-huh.
I transferred from Capital University, and there was shit ton of layoffs.
Oh, Capitals fired people?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be kind of big, aren't they? They're a big community college, baby.
They're a private Christian school.
That could make sense. Okay. So yeah, I do attempt to look at the economy because it does affect human behavior. It really does. It's something to keep in mind. So we were at birthing a child and traumas that can happen. Anybody want to name a trauma can happen while you're in the womb? What's a trauma that could happen while you're still baking in your mama's belly? You can, yeah. That's right. I was going to show you
I
that.
was reading something about like I think abuse.
Yes.
Abuse is if your mom getting abused.
Yes. Absolutely. So if it's an abusive relationship, our bodies put out a hormone called cortisol. And if the baby's brain is bathed in cortisol, it affects the development of the brain. So that's something to keep in mind. Gosh, what's the trauma one I want to show you guys? There's one it is a bit lengthy. Oh, it does say the high right now is 9 degrees Fahrenheit down there. Holy shit. Is it colder from anybody's hometown right now?
In Cleveland, it's like -4.
Is it? Okay. That is crazy. That is crazy. Okay, there is another person I would like for you guys to consider. She is what do they call the head medical person in California? Not the attorney general, but is it like the doctor general or something? CA head medic on trauma. Her name is Burks, Dr. Burks. There she is. Dr. Nadine Burks Harris, How Childhood Trauma Affects Health. And she does, actually, I don't know if I can show this because they always turn off my YouTube channel that people are maybe logging in. But she is a medical doctor that explains how the childhood trauma can affect health. I won't show the full thing, as like I said, they will shut down my YouTube usually. Oh yeah, we don't have the audio anyway. See how that works? I hate when it does that. So, and it's that noise actually that it knows it's a TED Talk when it does the drip. So, let's do it from this one. So trauma-informed care.
Kind of reminds me of that book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes, by Dr. Vanderkook.
Yes, sir.
I love that name. Vanderkook? Childhood trauma. So there's some that do it about ACEs in general. Has anybody ever taken the ACEs test?
Yes, sir.
Adverse childhood experiences? And you get a score from 1 to 10.
I got a 10. I thought that was a good thing. What? I was like, I passed, and he went.
It means that having a mental health assistant will be helpful, essentially. So it doesn't mean you're screwed for life, because some people are like, oh, the average is like 2, 3, or 4. Most of us have some ACEs. You can look it up, free ACEs quiz online, and divorce is the most common. So more than half of us have experienced divorce, alcohol and mental health in the family, if a family member is locked up, if there's sexual abuse. There's a few others that are the ACEs here. Even a natural disaster can cause the trauma. But there's often a quicker video than Dr. Nadine Burks. And since we don't have sound on that one, I will go to this one. We'll go to this one because it's only sounds like my house growing up. I said, shut the fuck up.
My parents don't understand. All the drinking and fighting means I'm scared. I'd like a cuddle, perhaps a bedtime story, but mostly I'd like them to stop shouting at me. And sometimes they hit me. Feeling scared every day and not feeling loved or wanted will change me for the rest of my life. Later, I'll have problems at school, problems with alcohol, and I'll get in trouble with the police. What's happening to me right now means I'm more likely to have serious health problems in middle age and die sooner than I should. Doctors say my life is full of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. But in my world, this means I see my dad hitting my mum. Dad's got a drinking problem, and mum's always crying, even with the tablets. I am always being shouted at and hit. After the booze and fags, there's not a lot of money for toys or clothes, or even food. I'm getting used to being scared all the time. Now I'm just angry. The doctors say things are changing inside me. My brain isn't learning how to control my feelings properly. My body can't relax like those kids who don't have ACEs, so my body won't be able to repair itself properly when I get older, making it more likely I'll get cancer or heart disease as an adult. It hurts when my parents hit me, but the real damage is hidden, and that damage will be with me for life.
So Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris says it's possible they have more health problems because they had drugs or alcohol to like shut your brain off. Like, I want to forget about my bad home life, so I'm going to smoke a huge blunt and take a bunch of heroin. But the truth was, even those that didn't use drugs or alcohol had a higher prevalence of heart disease, lung, is it called COPD now? Emphysema, and effects from the body. So the cortisol affects all of the cardiovascular system and whatnot.
I drink and smoke. They say I'm out of control, but I'm not. It's just my way of coping with my aces. I've been in plenty of fights, but what's wrong with that? Kids' punches don't hurt half as much as when my dad hits me. I beat up a kid last week at school because he looked at me weird. Who cares? I ended up with more time out of school. Learning's not for me anyway, and the teachers don't care any more than my parents. I don't like the way anyone looks at me except my girl. She's 16 and pregnant, just like my mum was with me.
So this is where I've ended up. I've got diabetes and cancer's probably on the way. I know these kill you, but I couldn't do without them. I've never had a proper job and I've spent time inside. I hate my kids. I hate their mum too, until she left, so my kids have grown up with ACEs. And now my daughter had her first kid. She's 16. The course of my life was set in the wrong direction a long time ago. I know where I'm heading, and sadly I know where my kids are heading too. This doesn't have to happen. A little help in childhood makes a big difference to where life takes you. When I was a baby, the nurses noticed that my mum wasn't coping and helped her and explained how important my childhood is to the rest of my life. So, with a bit of help, she coped. The police came round after next door complained about the noise from mum and dad fighting. They asked how I was feeling. I told them I was scared all the time. Mum and dad got help. The shouting got better and the hitting stopped. I even got some bedtime stories. I still had problems at school, but the teacher asked me about what was happening at home. I got help controlling my feelings. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough. I'm now married with 2 children, and I've got a job, most of the time. I haven't repeated the same problems with my kids. We got help when being a parent got too much. Our children are ACE-free, and that means their kids stand a good chance of growing up ACE-free as well. Almost half the people in England and Wales experienced one ACE as a child, and 1 in 10 of us suffered 4 or more ACEs. If we stop ACEs, millions of children would not become smokers or binge drinkers, and levels of violence in adults would be cut in half. Fewer ACEs in childhood also means fewer adults developing diseases like cancer, heart disease, and diabetes in middle age. We all need to be ACE aware. Are you? Doctors, police, nurses, teachers, firefighters, and most importantly, parents. The more you know about ACEs, the more you can help stop children growing up with ACEs in their lives. And for those of you who have already suffered ACEs, the more you know, the more you can help yourself and others who have suffered ACEs cope.
So that's one of the shorter clips. There is a documentary. I don't expect any of you have seen it. It's called Paper Tigers. And it's a Paper Tigers documentary about trauma on the brain. There's a lot more research nowadays about trauma. This one came out of Harvard. I actually really like this one too. Gosh, do I have Ashford on here? I probably do. I just have to search it. Any questions or thoughts or opinions or feelings about ACEs? Anybody? Like they said, more than half of us have experienced at least 8 ACEs before. 10% of us have 4 or more ACEs. And often that does relate to stemming from alcoholism, mental illness, addiction, or one of those. If you've had that many ACEs, it doesn't mean you are technically ruined for life, so to speak. It just means, as they showed at the end of the video, how important it is to have wellness. And it can be prenatal. Because if mom's brain is always on stress, trauma, etc., and maybe they're using drugs, and that does affect the baby's development. They usually find that in the first poop. So the baby's first poop shows 7 months of drug, alcohol, and usage from the mom and the dad, or the mom mainly. I guess if they're like hot boxing, maybe they could get secondary effects of weed and whatnot. But this is another one I want to show you guys quickly. That's also well done. So,
everyone in a community has a vested interest in everyone else's children, because everyone else's children determine the next adult population that makes for a successful society. Built into our biology is the need to have responsive interactions with adults.
Neglect for children is when they don't get what the brain is expecting to get, what the child is expecting to get, what we are biologically prepared and waiting for, which is input from those around us.
It's this back and forth serve and return interaction that literally shapes the architecture of the brain.
Serve and return begins when a child looks at something or observes something, makes an utterance, and that represents the serve. And the return is when the parent notices the child doing these things and responds to the child.
Under conditions where serve and return is broken, you literally are pulling away what is the essential ingredient of the development of human brain architecture.
It was a really compelling series of experiments where they started by videotaping the mother and the baby engaging in cooing and smiling. And then they asked the mother to basically put on a blank face and not respond at all.
this is the still face
When a baby
experiment.
is not attended to.
Was that? This is sad, actually. Because one thing I link it back to is, say, for example, you drink enough to black out or oblivion. So, like, by the end of the night, or maybe by today at this time at noon, you're like passed out on the couch and you got a newborn that's fucking hungry or whatever. The diaper, if you got poop on your butt for like an hour, it gives you a bad rash. Or if you shot heroin and you just like zone out, which is, I'll show you in the 30 Days of Heroin movie. It's the same as the still face experiment, because that's the same reaction. The baby's trying to like wake you up, but you're passed out from booze or you nodded off from heroin. So
that is a sign of danger to the baby biologically. So the stress system has become activated.
In a brain that is constantly bathed in stress hormones, not that's up and down, that comes with normal development. Certain key synapses, the connections between nerves, fail to form, and critical regions of the brain.
So neglect both fails to provide the stimulation that's needed to develop the basic architecture, and when it's at a certain level, is one of the most potent activators of the stress biology of a young child. So you get a double whammy.
Science points to 4 categories of this spectrum of neglect. The first category would be what's called occasional inattention, where children experience responsiveness most of the time, but occasionally adults don't respond. There's no harm in that, and in fact, there's probably some benefit.
A child can learn to self-soothe and explore the environment, and all of those opportunities build brain architecture.
The second category, scientists would call chronic understimulation, is where on a regular basis, children have less interaction with the adults around them than is needed for healthy development.
Those children typically, when provided with enriched learning opportunities and more typical levels of serve and return, will show catch up.
The third category is what science would call severe neglect in a family where not only are there prolonged periods of inattention and lack of responsiveness, but often also associated with not being fed enough, not being bathed enough, not having basic needs met.
Neglect is a huge problem in the US. Children are much more likely to be neglected than they are to experience any other kind of maltreatment.
We see the child really being at risk for much more substantial kinds of deficits down the road that don't necessarily get easily fixed or ameliorated. This is where we really need to think about more complicated and often more intensive strategies to help undo those effects.
The fourth category, called severe neglect, generally found in institutional settings, is a result of children living in kind of warehoused type situation in orphanages.
And it doesn't have to even be as extreme as orphanages. It can be experiences that are regretfully occurring in many, many parts of our country.
Often institutional care in this country is under the euphemistic name of transitional care or temporary care or assessment facilities.
If you think about what institutional or residential care would look like for an infant, where there's somebody new coming onto the shift every 8 hours, it really alters the development of the child's brain architecture and other aspects of the child's development.
We have the potential to change children's developmental trajectories.
Interventions can apply to parents, to foster parents or adoptive parents, childcare settings, Head Start settings, and other kinds of settings. And really, what they're about is attuning people to the serve and return process.
Neglecting young children is neglecting the foundations of a healthy next generation. The community pays a huge price later in terms of the problems of the next generation, whether it be educational achievement, economic productivity, good citizenship, the ability to parent the next generation. All of the things that have to do with a healthy, prosperous society.
Any questions?
Children who
That's all right. Any thoughts? It's it can be a lot on the baby, like to make it through. If they're never taught to self-regulate, they don't know how to make it through any type of good, bad experience. They talk about and as adults, we have to teach self-regulation. So that's tough. Like if we're always flying off the handle, all my kids are going to know how to do is fly off the handle. Like I've seen it in my middle child, and I've tried to be better with the younger ones. Like he'll throw his fucking pad like across the room. I'm like, what the hell? And I got to teach him how to self-regulate. So I tell him to like take in a deep breath and blow out the candles. And it's supposed to like literally like calm your like blood, heart, all of that stuff, like a deep breath all the way to here. I'm like, articulate what's going on, try to say what it is instead of like punching a hole in the pad. Like his first pad's all shattered up and whatever. Like he never knew how to like calm down. So he has a new one now. I'm curious to see. He's done better with it. I've taught him the deep breath techniques. It's not always like a guarantee. But anybody have nieces and nephews you've seen like fly off the handle? Yeah.
I think part of it would be there was a summer where we stayed with our dad and her mom, and they was never leaving home, so I had to really raise her.
How old is she?
11 now. And
So almost like 9 years younger than you?
Yeah, so I'm 20. So you can imagine her and me. And so at the time, I think I was only like 17. So I think part of it was me, but like now, I don't think she's too much off the handle just because
She's gotten some help or some, yeah, right. And you can,
bad off the handle. I just think it's just
right,
than this is-
right, yeah. Well, and you can learn it. Like we can learn it at this age now. It just gets harder because you get so used to doing what you do. It's interesting to see how we'll talk about attachment theory much later on, but you're like attachment to your caregivers, whoever they were, mom, dad, cousin, aunt, adoptive parent. That attachment kind of forms how we are in relationships later on in life. Whoever we're in relationship with, like if we're dramatic or dishonest or calm and accepting and loving, like attachment theory plays a lot in even like the partners we choose. So it's like crazy how like all that shit affects you later on in life. And it's like, whoa, that's from my mom swears because she kicked me off the nipple at 20 months. Like kicked me out, breastfeeding. And then we had, my brother is the closest in age with me. It was either 19 or 20 months. She's like, that's why you're messed up. I'm like, thanks, Mom. But, I have gone to counselors. You guys do know we have one right across the street there. You can go free. I think it's funded by Central State or like the Ohio State or the city or the government. They're starting to do horticulture therapy programs. That's one of the grants we have written. Any questions? Oh yeah, there's the attachment theory. That's the one I show later on. How it affects you in life and like the partner you choose. And we do the 5 styles of parenting. So all of these. But there's even a still face experiment with the dad. So paper tigers, anybody ever heard of that? Maybe I'll have it as like a discussion. You want to see the trailer? You ever do movie trailers? Whenever I say paper tigers, people say, well, there's apparently a Chinese one of like kung fu fighting and dragons. I'm like, that's not the right one. Where do they show the trailer? There it is. Okay. So it's on Amazon. Did you all know you get a free Amazon Prime account with your Central State email address? Yeah. 6 months free. It's kind of cool. I've used it as many times as I can because I had to pay for a minute and then my wife became a student here. I'm like, we got to use your email address now. And it's free. And then they try to hook you up on Grubhub, free delivery. What else is there?
I use my Apple Music.
Do they have that through Central State
It's
too?
not free. It's like cheap. It's like $3.
Oh, do you need a Central State login?
It's like 3.
It's like, I think it's
Oh,
just
that might
gotta
be
be,
with
I think you
tax.
gotta like be in college.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, yeah, because if they get you hooked in college, that's their last chance. And then you get a job when you're done, you pay for it the rest of your life, stuff like that. I guess I'm saying that because you will have access to this free. You can watch Paper Tigers on, they got it on YouTube. They charge you? Maybe it's free on YouTube now. Nope.
In every school in America, walking down
Because it
every
says buy
street in
rent.
America, there are the kids that get labeled. Get rid of them. They're nothing but trouble. Lincoln sits right in the heart of the most assaults, gang activity, truancy.
I did hear that it was the worst school you could ever go to.
Kids had knives, fights, absolute chaos.
He pissed me off and I threw a chair at him. I told him I was gonna kill him.
All of them were methed up.
I was invited to go to a conference about complex trauma and what stress does to the brain.
The behavior isn't the kid. The behavior is a symptom of what's
going on in their life.
My mom was like, get your shit and leave. She's the only thing I had. And for her to abandon me like that.
His coping mechanism was drinking a ton, smoking a ton.
I remember one night, I didn't want to be alive.
It hit me, and it hit me really hard.
You have to unconditionally love them, and you have to believe that their behavior might be out of their control.
I love playing guitar with several of these guys. I feel like that's almost as strong as anything we'd ever do in class.
After that, he wasn't only a disciplined figure, he was a friend.
Half of the student body had over a 3.0 GPA.
To watch their confidence come back has been incredible.
I'm not by myself anymore. I got a team.
If I can do it, all of you can definitely do it.
It's not that I'm judging you. I know why you're smoking weed. I know why you smoke meth. I know why you're in fights. You don't want to feel. I mean, that's the big challenge is I'm asking you to try feeling for a little bit because sometimes when you feel, it guides you in the direction that you should be going and not to where you are.
So that's the trailer. It is called Paper Tigers. Well done. Because it kind of begs a question too, like how many people you all went to school with growing up ended up in college? I know I got in a lot of trouble in high school, so I had to go to 5 high schools. But how many kids you grew up with went to college, are in college? Like more than half, less than half?
Okay, so honestly, when it comes to my high school, surprisingly, like
It's a good high school.
all of our smart students, like they're not in college. It's I feel like it's because
They make more money.
also it's
Yeah.
because they a lot of them went through like very traumatic things in high school. Like one girl, her mom died when she found out she was autistic, and she just went through this whole life change. Another one, they transitioned from a girl into a boy. Like it was just a lot of, I can see like a whole lot of like outside of school reasons as to why they didn't.
And I shouldn't have said, so you bring up a good point. I shouldn't have said made it to college. How many like then became self-supporting, got a job on their own, doing okay in life, so to speak? You don't have to go to college to make it. I will be the first to say it.
Well, most of the people I went to school with like are having kids.
That's another thing.
Kind of like cyclical generational stuff that they can't get out of.
Yeah, a lot of people I went to school, even elementary, like in middle school, like everybody I most of the school with already have children.
And you don't know how to raise a kid if you're too young. You're like,
and they be outside partying and stuff.
Right. Right.
I feel like a lot of it's because their parents wasn't really, I don't want to say wasn't parents.
the parenting style. Yeah. It's the parent. We'll get into that. Yeah. It's the next PowerPoint or the next PowerPoint. And so you guys being unique and maybe breaking a trend or groundbreakers and doing, I still do think social work is a very good option. They do say a lot of us get into social work because we did have ACEs in the past to begin with. So we had adverse childhood experience. So you made it through something. It's okay if not, but like they say, that's common. So, and you know how to get through adversity. You know how you can teach a client how to get through adversity. That's helpful. And then you'll get trained with the tools of how to do that here, and especially graduate school. That's where you get your clinical training. So yeah, I should phrase it like how many are doing okay or self-supporting by their own contributions, or
Most of the people I went to high school with went to college, but they didn't stay. Like all of them left after the first semester. Like I don't know what happened.
oh yeah, how many do you think have a completed college degree in the United States of America and then globally? How many do you guys think percentage-wise?
Probably not a lot.
I think it's 33%. And globally, it might only be 1 or 2%. So that's one thing to consider. Like, we don't have to go to college. I know when I was growing up, actually, they were like, no, you have to go to college. Like, there's no choice. You have to go to college. Like college it is, right? And I almost failed out, so I'm not even gonna lie. I had like 2 years where I had to adjust to learn to be on my own, to be a self-starter, to be turning my shit, pass my classes, and get it together. Because you got absolute freedom right now. And you have more distractions than I never thought of we would have had growing up.
I agree, because I was always in sports and stuff, so I didn't necessarily have time, but like, I'm not in sports anymore here, so it's like.
And there's tons of
There's
distractions.
nothing to do but do homework.
Okay, so that's good, you're saying, maybe. Is that
Sometimes,
good? Okay,
good.
okay.
Cause like I feel like I work better when my brain is more busy, cause I
Structured.
procrastinate. So
oh yeah, it's easy to
when I
procrastinate.
had more time, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll do it later. I'll do it later.
Right.
When I was in sports, it's like, oh no, I need to get this done now.
Yeah. Well, I took like 5 or 6 years for my undergrad. I did get 2 degrees, psychology, theology. I took 3 years for grad school, which you all have the option to do it in 1. If you get a BSW, you get a 1-year MSW option. That's freaking amazing. And then I took 8 years for my doctorate. So I was like 40 when I finished. And I didn't have kids till 42. I was probably the only one who didn't have the kids. Maybe there's some out there I don't know about, but who knows? I hope not. But how would you know? Like, if somebody chose not to tell you, how would you know?
That happens. Over winter break, my dad was having kids, so like I got to meet her on Christmas.
Oh, how old?
She's 5.
Dang, so you met a new sister?
Yeah.
Okay, how was it?
It was cool. When I first met her, she gave me a hug.
Oh.
But I guess she'd always been her mom and her sisters, and she didn't know that like she had siblings on her father's side.
Right.
So when she opened the door and saw like 5 of us sitting in here, she was shocked.
You're like, dang,
And I had
okay.
big sisters.
Right. Let me see. Any questions so far? I know that's a lot to throw at you guys.
Kind of like a thought, I guess.
What's that?
It's
Yeah.
just like interesting to me. Also, like how I used to work in a residential facility for troubled teenagers. Like we had kids that self-harmed, we had a drug and alcohol unit, we had a human trafficking unit, we had a like juvenile detention unit, and it kind of blew me how much of a stigma there was around just working in that field. And like I always told people, these aren't bad kids, they've been through bad shit, they
Right.
haven't navigated yet. And like they gave us a lot of training on how like repeated stress when you're young literally like affects the parts of your brain, like your hippocampus, your amygdala, and all that. And I just thought it was really interesting that it like literally physically changes your brain.
It does. That's what this documentary hits on. So I am going to try to get it in detail. You're absolutely right. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad that you said that because I completely forgot. Okay, so I did take a year off from here. And when I did, I worked as a substitute teacher at a school called Blairwood.
Public or private school?
It was
Or alternative?
Public, but it was like a lot of the kids it was only like I think it was like K through 6. It's like every grade there was kids who like were going through things at home, and it was just so crazy because they were so young.
Yeah.
And I definitely got to see how it affected them. Like it was just really crazy, and it was also crazy because some staff would like just brush it off, but like I don't know, I've always kind of been interested in like the psych part of stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So, like,
absolutely.
I will always I wouldn't necessarily get mad at children like when they were disrespectful. Like sometimes I would just want to see like who are your parents, because they were also the type of kids who like their parents didn't come to the school.
Well, they want you to get mad. Sometimes that's the power they have over you. So they want you to fly off the handle. That's how they've controlled you.
But yeah, like it was crazy, especially because it was such a younger crowd, and sometimes it did like make me as a social worker. Do you get like emotional from?
I absolutely have. I empathize for you guys. Like I said, the number of distractions, I would fail out. If you guys had your phones, you can have your earbuds in the whole class. You don't pay attention to shit. I would have failed out so fast with these that you have. I see college as voluntary and like self-supporting. So like, I'm not going to pull you through. You got to turn your shit in to pass. So, but that's how they were when I was in college. And if I didn't turn my shit in, I failed. I had a 0.59 my sophomore year. That's like D, W, F, D, W, W. And because you got to turn your shit in. But like the amount of distractions you have now, we didn't have wireless. We didn't have earbuds. We didn't have, all the shit that we had. None of that. We had, you pass a note. I had a pager. I was 97.
I just want to know, where'd you go what year did you go to college?
From 96 till 99 for undergrad.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because I was just my mom went to college, I think, for her bachelor's, so she told me the same exact thing you like this right now. Like we had to read up, like you have to actually go to the library, so just look stuff like a
Take notes.
Yeah, like, take notes, like, actually go to the library, read a book.
Right. But you got like, then when I went to grad school, I got a laptop. And then my girlfriend texted me. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like a text? I'm like, can't you just call? And now that's just normal communication. Like you text, I guess because maybe you're in a loud space. That's when I saw the benefit of texting. Like if you can't hear them on the phone, like they just have to text it. And then, wireless. And then you can play shit on your computer and play games. Like I almost fell out of grad school because of it. So I didn't have that until 03 and 04 when I was in grad school. Almost failed out. And then in the doctoral program, same thing, is we didn't have wireless. You know what I mean? Like I think they did have laptops and you plug it into like the internet or something, but then it got wireless and like I could look up all this shit and you had MySpace and you talk to people and you guys got that everywhere now. So you don't even have to pay attention. And it's just like, so just focus for a few years, get your degrees, get out and use it to the advantage. Cause like you can look stuff up on the fly, like, but I did not have the distractions you guys had. We modeled a school after that one that you mentioned. Well, after Paper Tigers, but like we were an alternative school at Lighthouse Community School. God, am I even looking up the right one? It was in Cincinnati Public. Where does it say that? That's exactly what I'm looking for.
That's the first week.
Because, okay, right here. Is it that one? Okay. And so Cincinnati Public did take it over. I actually wrote a few articles about it.
So what is it? I've never heard of that. Where is that located at?
Actually, this looks like they expanded it, and it is. God, where is it? Because they have a few now. That looks like Doan. You ever heard of Doan? D-O-H-N?
Dawn?
Dawn. Maybe it was Dawn. D-O-H-N. That's why I had to spell it. So I wrote a couple articles about it because we were doing horticulture therapy at it. They would raise plants. They even had chickens. They had but talking about the trauma-informed care. So I published this article. God, it's been 8 years now. That's insane. Okay. Yeah. See, if you want to cite me, you can download the citation. I don't even know what that looks like, but yeah, you either copy it or download. And then after that, writing several articles. And when you guys write, I recommend maybe using Scholar because it's cool that they actually let you cite. Say you want to cite that. What's that? It is. So, I want one of these two to get 3 more citations. And I can say I have 2 with 10 or more. They always make that a big deal. This is Scholar. And gosh, I want to do it by, 2016. They do it by number of citations. You can change it by year. Here we go. No, the other way though. So like in 2016, damn it. It does. I guess I want to show you guys. There it is. So if you look up anything, whatever your favorite topic is, in your writing in class, I am okay if you use this. And there's APA right there. So like at the end of your paper, you alphabetize those. You cite, say it was Trouth 2012. That was, that was the whole horticulture therapy article. Oh, there we go. And then they give you full text, so you can like download a full text and read the articles, which is helpful. They've got different versions. There's where you would cite it. So it's, I guess it's in that journal, which they've done that. So when you guys do write, this is more preparing you for like April, May, your final paper, but you'll try to use current literature. There's a ton of stuff on trauma. I've written stuff on trauma. A lot of people have done stuff on trauma. And we do it here at Central State, and now Dr. Hunt in the counseling program. Have anybody met Dr. Hunt yet? Okay. So you can go, I think, anytime. I know she's busy as hell, but like you can like call her and you will be able to see. And we got a large grant to provide horticulture therapy over the next 3 years too. So that's one thing that she's starting to do. Definitely worth going to go and look at. And there's Lighthouse Community School. Okay, this was the one that I'd written an article about. I wanted to tell you guys about. And we tried to mimic what they did at the Paper Tigers in Cincinnati. So we try to do the same thing in Cincinnati at Cincinnati Public Schools. Wrote an article about it, but just like focusing on wellness and self-care and things that need to be done. Try to get our brain concentration up, because what do you guys think the longest attention span is nowadays for like all the distractions you have with text messages? 3 seconds. Right. Then at least you're honest about it. You know what I mean? Mine probably isn't much different. I was diagnosed ADHD in 1992 and got Ritalin and all that shit. Now I just use coffee. So distractions mess me up. But learning how to channel your focus and energy so that it can be helpful to people. So we do what we need to do. I know we went through birth complications, prematurity, consequences of premature birth. We mentioned fetal alcohol syndrome. So here's kind of the point I was trying to show before, that the fetus does respond to, keep spitting. I don't know if it's the antibiotic I'm on or what, but fetus responds to pain, light, touch, and taste. So like baby's in the womb is probably only like that big. You know what I mean? But you fuck with it, it's like, whoa, like it, you know, like you poke it or like it'll protect itself. It responds to sound vibration. Like I would talk to the baby through the belly button, like, hey, how you doing down there? You know, like they know mom and dad's voice pretty fast. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy. Is they've been in the womb. So they recognize the mother's voice at birth. Does it have that weird ass thing? No, not for you guys. Yes.
So this is coming up because I don't know anything. So does a fetus have an actual conscience?
A conscience.
Yes.
That's getting into like the debate from Socrates in like the year 117 or whatever the heck Socrates was, or 2000. I know that the subtitles are weird. We used it when we had someone who spoke Russian and then Spanish in the class. You can actually translate it live time. I have heard arguments that the age of reason, that's usually why they have first communion at that certain age. Anybody have to do first communion or some shit like that? Is that like a Catholic thing? What age do you remember people do the first communion at? So the age of reason is 7. So yeah, like so is that kind of what you're asking?
Sort of, yeah, just because I don't know if that's what you were saying beforehand, but I was thinking how on Annabelle's experiences about after, I don't know how to say, you gain conscious after a certain you know you're doing something, but then after you know what you're doing, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, it does.
Just like your age, just like that, you know.
What's your first memory? Does anybody remember their first memory? And we get into that later on.
For me, it was just me running around my living room in my own house.
What? Really? That's pretty young. So how old was yours?
Probably around kindergarten age. Yeah, kindergarten age.
They say like 3 or 4 is your first memory.
I remember in kindergarten, I got chased home by a 6th grader.
You could remember one if it was traumatizing.
I remember.
It was traumatizing. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was at my grandma's.
Or maybe extreme joy, like one of the high ends of the spectrum of trauma, joy. So you do remember one. That's good. That's impressive.
Like, it's very faint, but I remember.
Right. Mine was in a Paris line that they gave my pacifier to the raccoons at the Cincinnati Zoo or something like that. They wanted me to stop chewing my pacifier because it fucks up your teeth, and my teeth got fucked up. Anybody else? Memory? Was it 3 or 4 usually? 2, 3, or 4. Let's call it 2, 3, or 4. That's a big trauma.
It was because it was a lot going on.
Right.
The family was
Crying and screaming.
Yes, it was a lot going on.
Like I get his fucking life insurance policy. No, fuck you. I get that 100,000.
Exactly.
Okay. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our university shit was weird because we didn't know what was going on.
Right. Yeah. And I see that with mine. Like, and I'm trying to not even debate with my wife in front of the kids if I can. We're not great at it. Like, I don't want to argue. I don't want to fight with them. Is they pick up on that shit. And like, we bought a new house recently. It is stressful financially because it is a terrible economy to buy a house. It's probably bad for rent. How much y'all pay for rent? It's not good, right? What's the cheapest rent you could get if you tried?
800.
That sounds good, right? I used to pay $300.
For rent?
Yeah.
See, I would have been if it was good.
I mean, I made $4.25 an hour, so keep that in mind. And then it
What
went
year
up
was that though?
the 90s.
Oh, so like instead of like floating around in my dad, I should have been out like in the stock market.
I remember when you could find like $100 on the floor. Everybody's so broke now, you don't find money.
Oh, not even pennies?
No.
Right. I used to always dig for like coins and
I used to be able to just.
under the vending machine.
I can't even.
Right.
Ain't nobody know nothing. They know.
Well, housing inflation. My first house was $110,000. My mortgage was like $500 a month. I had 4 bedrooms and I rented 2 of them for $300 a piece. It was a hustle. I made like $70,000 cash in those 10 years there because like I would just rent to college students, and then my second house was $150,000 because I sold my first house for $145,000. That was $800 a month. I did still rent to people. Then my third house was $206,000 because I sold my second house for $209,000.
Okay.
It was 05, 2016, 2019. And I just sold that one this past year for $313,000. So it's a sad story of inflation because it's the same house square footage for all 3 of those homes. But they printed all that money in 09. Does anybody know how much money we had in supply before COVID when y'all were younger? You ever heard about the story of inflation? Because this does affect everything in life.
I don't know nothing but about the money.
Money?
In and out my pockets.
And it's good to know. And I think most of us are
I would
that
like
way.
to know that.
Right. Most of us don't know. Do you know what a $20 bill was in 1933? It was an ounce of gold. You know how much an ounce of gold costs now in 2023 or 2025? It's like 2,900, and so it was $20 back then. Now it's 2,900. That's almost devaluation of 99%. Like, do you know what a dollar bill was in 1933, and even as recent as 19 ounce of silver? So an ounce of silver. And if you guys look that up nowadays, you ever looked up $20, 1933? There you go. They look like this. Boom. You know how much that shit costs now? Like, even if you just get a little tooth or like an earring or whatever, you know how much it is. It's expensive, isn't it? We had a lot of wars since then. So that was the whole point. We had the Great Depression. So the government confiscated all of these coins in 1933. They made every U.S. citizen give back your gold, and they gave you a piece of paper for it. Yeah. It was a smart move on their part. And then overnight, they changed the value from $20 to $35 an ounce. So they devalued by like 40, 60% overnight, whatever that is. They still had silver coinage, but anybody know the year they got rid of silver coins and dimes and quarters and what are the other coinages? Quarters, half dollars, dimes. Pennies have always been copper, but that shit is way worth more than a penny. I think pennies are worth 3 cents of copper if it's real copper from 1982. I guess my point being, this was the way we got into a big world war. This does get into history, but again, human behavior and the way that we behave for money. We got rid of silver in our money in 1964. It was right around the year the Civil Rights Act was signed. JFK. But it changed a lot of our behaviors because what we can buy with money and feed our family with is significantly, drastically different since just 5 years ago. And I'm sure you guys noticed that. Go ahead. Sorry.
They have like these tokens that they would give people in the Great Depression so they could go to the store and buy stuff. They would like make sure they don't buy too much. Like they would give you a piece of. Oh,
for the war, yeah. They did that for the wars. They were saving metals. They were saving rubber for tires on the tanks. They were saying, whatever the heck they were saying. So absolutely. And then, gosh, what was it called? Pandemic inflation. And I know this is a stretch, but it really is important to understand because it changes our behavior. Like how many people are struggling? Did any of you get a stimmy check during the pandemic or are you too young? Okay. How much? I think I got
like 1,200.
I think it was supposed to be 1,200 a person because I had a family of 4. They gave me $5,000, I think, and I put it in a cryptocurrency and I lost 80% of it. Like it was like in a year. Dumb move, right? I'm not going to fuck with cryptos anymore. But as everybody's getting rich, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to get rich. I bought some Bitcoin and then bam, it slammed down so fast. Like that $5,000 turned into $800. I was so pissed. But the point, what'd you say? Oh, what are the Trump coins?
He's making a cryptocurrency.
Oh, I heard it went up 500% this weekend. Where do you buy it, those? I don't think you can buy it on. I only buy the free shit on Coinbase. So, like, if you sign up for Coinbase, they give you like lessons, and you get. What's that? Somebody got rich.
I heard a lot of people got rich overnight.
Well, same with the Hawk Tua girl. Was that one? Have you guys heard of that Hawk Tua girl coin?
What?
Yeah.
Like she came out with like this like currency, and there's like I think that she was screwed over by the people that like
Talked her into it.
Yeah.
She did a pump and dump.
Out to like her like audience, like, hey, this is this new kind of like cryptocurrency, and a lot of her audience bought into it, and it wasn't real. It was like super fucked. And
They dumped it. Yeah, they sold it.
A lot
all.
of people like lost their money.
They call it a pump and dump.
Yeah.
Hawk Tua. So this is probably the curvature of inflation. Well, yeah, in December 2019. So the money supply, we had like $2 or $3 trillion, like green paper dollars, and then we handed everybody 1,200. So if that's 300 million U.S. citizens, is that 3 billion or 3 trillion? I'm not super smart on this, but if you have 2 trillion before the pandemic, and you got 4 to 6 trillion in circulation after the pandemic, and all that same money is chasing a gallon of gas or a gallon of milk, what do you think happens?
Goes less far-ish.
Right, because now you've got 6 trillion instead of 2 trillion. So say gas was $2 a gallon, or milk was $2 a gallon. Now it's $6 a gallon because you printed all that money chasing the same like milk, bread, gasoline, what else? Heating, cooling, housing, stocks. Does that make sense to you guys?
And aren't they funding like what is that war that's going on?
Oh God, there's so many wars. You're right. There's so many wars that we're funding. Right.
What, the genocide of Palestine?
Isn't America 36 trillion in debt?
Yes. So that's another thing. Have you guys seen the debt clock? I know we're going over, but this is again, it affects our human behavior. You'll be okay. You're in social work. So you're going to know how to navigate this shit. I promise you. By being a social worker, we do get a lot of printed money in social work, which is good and bad, because it's bad that we do print money. First off, it's bad that we print it, but that's how they have funded the wars. Oh yeah, they have the debt clocks in New York somewhere. Oh, of course it can't be reached. Maybe they block it. They don't want you guys knowing about this stuff. Have you guys seen the debt clock?
I didn't even know it was a
Maybe that's what I need to do. There it is. This is a good illustration if it works. It probably won't. That would be bad if it doesn't. When was that? 1912, 1920. Yeah, that is how much we've printed since then. So imagine how much money was devalued since then. So to buy a house, like when I was born, my parents got one for $40,000. Anybody know the housing prices near you?
It depends on where you're at.
Right, it does.
In Cleveland, it depends on where you're at.
East 1999.
Probably where you're gonna find the lower.
That's what Bone Thugs and Harmony always sang about. East 1999.
That's where you probably gonna find some
Cheaper houses. Gosh, there used to be. Well, okay, here's a good illustration. So this shows it live. This is what it would look like. The website I'm trying to pull. Gosh, I wonder if they've already pulled it down. This is so yeah. Who said 36 trillion?
Yes.
Okay. So you're right. There it is. 35 trillion, 272 billion, 327 million, 700 and. Isn't that insane?
That was not possible. Is it because the
I didn't see math classes like freshman year when I took American.
Oh, okay. You said, how is it possible?
Yeah, is it because they're funding for Ukraine?
So yeah, funding the Ukraine. I know we've given them 800 million a few times.
That's a lot of money.
Well, and they do break it down. So they say our tax dollars only bring in, for example, 6 trillion. Some of it is Medicare and Medicaid. That's a lot. That's probably $1.5 trillion or more. So $2 trillion is Medicare and Medicaid. Social Security, like if your parents are 65, they get $2,000 a month. When I retire, I hope I get it if it's still there. They probably have to keep printing money to make sure it's still there. Defense, here it is, because we mentioned the Gaza Strip, the war in Israel, the Ukraine. There's a lot that we don't know about. So that's $1 trillion at least. I'd say defense, they do $1 trillion. I wish that it would work live because.
Do you think we're going to see like a big war in the next 5-6 years?
I hope not. You know what I mean? Like
I've been keeping up. Like I'm not gonna say I keep up with war.
Right.
Ukraine.
Well, it's good to know, yeah, because then we will be rationing again, like you said. Like save your freaking rubber, save your metal, save your.
Like bread tokens and like milk tokens, and they would go to the store and give that to them instead of money.
It was probably food stamps. That was probably the etiology of food stamps. Yeah, it's not much different than it. Because you do got to keep people alive at bare minimum, or you're going to have riots in the streets. There it is. We can finish on this, but this is the real live. Did anyone know the U.S. population? How many are living in the U.S.? Documented, I guess, at least.
310 million?
Yeah, now it says 339,983. The workforce, we only have 161 million people in the workforce. So that's
less than half.
Yeah, I know that is less than half, but probably most are kids. Unemployed are 7 million. Healthcare. I do like when they show this one. They show paper silver ratio. Because if you find a quarter from 1964, keep that motherfucker. I'm telling you. Because look at that. Gold to paper and paper to silver. Paper to gold, it's like $127 to one. And then paper to silver, $379 to one. I think gold is like $2,800 and silver is at about $30 an ounce.
So if you have that, you take it to the bank, they have to give you money for it?
You would want to take it to a coin store. The bank will give you 25 cents, but the coin store will give you like $5-7 for that quarter.
What's a coin store?
Coin stores are everywhere. You say, we buy gold. You drive by them places all the time. It says, we buy gold, we buy silver.
It's like one of them old commercials from like, they look like filmed in the 1990s with a swing.
They buy that shit. Oh, they'll buy it. They might try to hose you on it, but they'll be like, yeah, here's $4 for that quarter. You'll be like, yes, but it's worth $7 a quarter. You know, like it just depends. Here's the interest we're paying. This is the scary part because my new house interest rate is 6.5%. A year ago, I had a 3% interest rate. That's what's killing me. It doubled my housing payment, and things are tight. And so we are debating, arguing. I don't want to do it in front of the kids, but we got to figure out our life and our budget and can't Grubhub as much and buy bullshit that we used to. And it sucks, but we do have a house for the 4 kids. Our last house was a 3-bedroom. Now we got 4. I know.
They got back to back.
4, 3, 2 in 4 months.
Oh, yeah, that's time me and my siblings. When they get older, it's gonna be worth it.
Right. Yeah, it should be. So I know we went all over the place. Anybody thoroughly confused yet?
No.
Okay. All right, good. Because it will affect you as a baby, you know, like my newborn, like she's got to go through us paying double the housing than I did in 2020. I know. And the heating, I've added. I've got solar panels. I got to move them from my old house. I try to get free electric. I bought geothermal heating and cooling. I charge my electric car on it, so I try to like be sustainable, affordably. Like I don't know whether it'll pan out for me. I guess we'll find out. We'll get in on what the baby sees next time. But any questions, any genogram questions? I erased my genogram, but I can make it for you again, or you watch the video if you want. There's a lot going on right now, and like the next, guess who the only president that didn't go to war in the last 100 years actually was? You guys ever heard this? The only president who didn't go to war anywhere else in the past 100 years. Because we've been in war consistently since like World War I and II. It is. It was, we did no new wars from 2017 until 2020, believe it or not. That was shocking to me, as I would think dude would want to declare war all over the place. Because they go steal maybe oil or go steal assets or gold or diamonds or gems or whatever, you know, whatever it is. But ideally, we live as a happy global community and take care of each other, right? Kumbaya type of shit. Ideally. And I hope what we do, you know, as social workers, we want to be the change we wish to see in the world. We can at least teach you all how to survive in this world of printed money. A lot of social work is funded through printed money. So we would probably be like supposedly each family has $9,000 of savings. I don't believe that, but $9,000 just sitting. Right. Gross domestic product. So we produce like 29 trillion a year, but in taxes, we only get like, oh, look at how much debt per citizen. 3,000 per citizen? I have 300,000 in student loans, so that seems low.
What if they just made everything free overnight?
So there is something to be said about like we have to grow our food, we have to do some type of work, we have to I wish it could just be like, yes, like you said, everything's free. There are some countries that have tried that. Like communism. Like did you mention communism earlier? Maybe socialism, communism. Nicaragua, maybe.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like certain political people have tried to make communism out into something that it's not.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of people anymore have very skewed perception of what communism is.
Correct. I can see that.
But I don't think it's inherently bad.
Right.
If it were done correctly, which it never has been done in history.
Or to have a socialism democracy, like those two combined, which we kind of almost have in America. We do, if you don't have money, you can get food in America. I have noticed that. And when I lived in a third world country, you're going to fucking starve to death. And that's sad. Like we some of our placements were like feeding the children at in Nicaragua that had, and they talk about a 5-year-old that looks like a 2-year-old. You guys ever seen that? Is they're just like emaciated, so they don't get the proper nutrition. They look 2. Here we are supposed to have access, and that gets into your other classes where we talk about other stuff.
So they don't have like soup kitchens or nothing like that?
Not as much. It's more run out of the faith-based community. So maybe a Christian church, a Jewish temple, a Catholic church, a synagogue, or something. They'll feed as you see the image of God in every human being. That's where you'll see it more. So yeah, we're supposed to be close to it here in America. I know we're by no means perfect, but third world countries are rough. I've lived in a few. So yeah, a lot to learn. We'll get into it, and we do as social workers allow ourselves to be the agent of change and get resources to people, essentially, starting at birth. So that's all I've got. I know we're right at time. Any questions? Yeah, there's just too much to talk about. We could go on and on. You could read